All
Do you want to
right.
bet on the fourth week of NFL action? Are you? Are you looking to bet on the fourth week of NFL action? You can't. That was last week. This is the fifth week of NFL action. And Sunday Night Football features an AFC Championship rematch as well as a ton of other great games on the weekly slate. Check out the link in the description to get a deposit up to $1,000 through DraftKings and the Sports 2.0 network. I'm your host, Tom Zwiller, and my co-host,
Anthony Nemeti.
we are here to present to you the Two Nights NFL Awards show. But first, Thursday Night Football last night featured the LA Rams traveling on the road to take on the divisional foe, the Seattle Seahawks. The game got off to a really slow start. At halftime, the score was Seattle 7, LA 3. You can tell that I took the over last night. But in the second half, LA scored 2 unanswered touchdowns. Russell Wilson then left the game with an injury, later revealed to be a sprained finger. But Geno Smith was able to step in and led the Seahawks on a great drive, capping it off with a TD throw to DK Metcalf, making it a close game of 16-14. However, the Rams then drove the field, and Sony Michel capped off the drive with a 2-yard rushing touchdown for a 23-14 lead. Seattle then kicked a field goal to make it a 6-point game, and they actually did force a defensive stop. But Geno Smith threw an interception, and Matt Gay was able to ice the game with a field goal to win it 26-17. Tony, the Rams get their rebound win after a really bad 37-20 Arizona Cardinals loss. What do you think of the Rams and their chance to win the NFC West?
I like their chance to win still. This was a pretty big game. That first half looked very unlike the Rams. They just couldn't seem to get their start going. And I did know that after the game, Russell Wilson was not the only one that suffered a finger injury. Matthew Stafford also dislocated his finger, had to pop that back in. So they wrapped it. He said it didn't affect him that much. I think that's pretty accurate. A lot of people are saying that pick was, because he messed up his finger. He was a little hurt. I don't think so. I think it was just, if you watch the play, he was running out to his right. You can see he was trying to direct his receiver as to where to go. The thing that is kind of obvious is that if you're directing your receiver, the corner is also going to see where you're directing. So I think it was just the corner happened to be in the better spot than the receiver was, and it was also just a bad throw. So that was a bad pick. But other than that, I think the Rams did pretty well, especially in that second half. They cleaned it up. Both teams seemed to be able to move the ball pretty well. Even in the first half, it was just finishing the drives, and that's what Stafford kind of emphasized in the post game, was that they could move the ball just fine. That wasn't really the issue. It was when they got into the Seahawks half of the field where they kind of struggled. They couldn't really get past, they'd get to third or fourth down. They would just have to punt it away. They couldn't really do anything. But in that second half, they really cleaned it up, and I think that first half's more of a fluke than anything. I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The second half Rams did appear to be the real Rams more than the first half Rams were. I am a little bit concerned because you can't get off to a slow start like that against most opponents and get back in the game. Luckily for them, their defense is really good and was able to limit Seattle. So I think they're in a good spot. They obviously have that loss to Arizona, but they are in second place in the division. The Seahawks, we'll talk about them in a second, got bumped back to fourth now with a 2-3 record. I came into the season saying that I thought LA should be the Super Bowl favorite and looked like they should be the favorite to win the NFC West. I still stand by that. I still think that Arizona game was a bit fluky too. And we'll see this weekend if Arizona can keep it up against the 49ers. But yeah, that game did not shake my confidence in the Rams at all. If anything, going on the road and getting a win in front of the 12s kind of made me a little bit more confident because that is not an easy environment to win. And Russell Wilson, I believe, before last night had an 8-1 Thursday night football record. So that's a tough situation for any team coming in the short week after the loss to the Cardinals on Sunday, rebounding and getting a very, very important win.
Yeah, absolutely. They might have got a little bit lucky there with Russ getting hurt and coming out. Obviously, Geno Smith is not Russell Wilson, even though he did start out. He was kind of throwing that ball a little bit. He had some dimes in there. I don't remember Geno being any good, but he kind of came out swinging last night until that real late pick. So other than that, I think he actually looked really good. Seahawks might have a decent backup if Russ is out for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I do think that Geno Smith actually really did play well. Part of me wonders if that's a game planning thing. Like he's a little bit different than Russell Wilson, so you don't exactly know what to expect when you see him come out and how the coaches are going to plan around him. So part of me wonders if it's something like that, or if he just genuinely came out and was that good, because he did not look great after that first drive. Like he looked like he could manage after that first drive, where
Yeah.
he was able to get that 30-yard touchdown. So it was by no means a small accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little skeptical that is the real Geno Smith, and I think people are going to probably, if Russell is out for an extended amount of time, I think then they can probably adjust to him.
We'll see. I mean, even if they didn't plan for him, this is the Rams defense. They are, I would say, top 5, maybe top 7 in the league right now. So even if you're not game planning for him, it is Geno Smith after all. Like before last night, he was never anything crazy special. So he had some dimes. After that first drive, he did look a little bit slower. The Rams did start to figure him out a little bit. But really, overall, as a backup quarterback, if you can manage a game as a backup against the Rams defense, you're doing a really good job.
No, that's absolutely fair. Let's move to the Seahawks. The Seahawks, they looked like they were in really good shape. They kind of got off to a slow start this season. They came into the week 2-2. They had just beaten the 49ers to get a very big and important divisional win. They just made it back to 500. But they're now 2-3, and Russell Wilson, he didn't play a lot of the second half, actually, with that finger sprain. Pete Carroll said it was a severe finger sprain. I don't know what to make of that, if he's likely to miss next week, or because they have the extended week now between their games, if he can come back. Do you think Seattle's in danger of missing the playoffs now that they're 2-3 in the best division in football?
I think they might. They might be. I don't want to say that I'm worried about them because it is the Seahawks. I don't think Russ is going to be out that long. Maybe a week. I would be surprised if it's 2 weeks, even if it's just a finger sprain. Russ is a tough guy. He's actually in jeopardy. He's never lost. He's never not started a game when he's played. So that streak might come to an end. If it does, if it's for a significant amount of time, yes, obviously, of course, you're worried about the Seahawks. I don't think it will be. I think they can bounce back. They're going to have to get a wild card. There's no way they win this division, but I do think that they are going to be a strong contender for the wild card. We could see a lot of NFC West teams in fighting for those wild cards this week or this year.
Yeah, with the seventh playoff spot, that third wild card, it's not actually that crazy to think that all 4 of the NFC West teams make the playoffs. The stranger things have happened, to be sure. Now, my question to you is, next week, the Los Angeles Rams, they take on the New York Giants, which feels like a pretty easy win, even if it is on the East Coast, which we know there is a tradition of Western Coast teams struggling on the Eastern Coast because they have to make that time zone jump. And so that's a bit of a problem. I would assume that we have them winning against the Giants, right? These are the Rams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they have to win against the Giants. It's going to take a whole lot of luck for the Giants to pull this one out. I know that they did just beat the Saints. I think that is 100% a fluky game. You never know with the Saints this year. They are either the best team in the league or they're closer to the worst. Last week, they just happened to be pretty much the worst team in the league, and the Giants pulled out a narrow win. So I do think that the Rams are going to come through. They're going to sweep that one pretty easily, and they're going to cement their spot closer up there at the top.
Mm-hmm. Now the Seahawks, they're 2-3. They're actually going to have the tougher game. They're going to go on the road to take on the Steelers. The Steelers obviously having that great defense, but the not great offense. What do you expect to see out of Seattle in that one?
Seattle's going to take that one too. I think the Seahawks are a very good team. They're going to get kind of overshadowed by all of the other great teams that are in their division. But once they go outside of their division, we're going to see a lot of success from them. Even with teams like the Steelers, their defense, of course, is really good. I think they have taken a step back from last year, and their offense doesn't seem to have gotten any better whatsoever. And the Seahawks defense, obviously not fantastic, not great, but when you're playing an offense as poor as the Steelers is, you don't really need to be great. You just need to rely on your offense, which I think they can.
Now, let's say if you are in charge of Russell Wilson, what's your play here? If you are that confident in the fact that the Steelers don't have a good offense, and you're confident that Geno Smith is actually a really good backup that can serve you well, would you want to rest Russell Wilson? Is that something you would think about considering, or because you have that extended, you have the 10 days between games now because you got the early Thursday nighter? Would you want to play him anyway to secure the win because you pretty much need every win possible?
I think I'm going to trust Russ on that, and I'm just going to ask him maybe a day or two before the game, how are you feeling, champ? Do you think your finger is good enough where you can throw this ball accurately? And I think Russ is a good enough competitor where he's probably going to say no matter what, yeah, my finger's fine. I would throw him out for the first quarter, let him play if he really wants to, and if he's struggling, bench him early. Don't push it to like the third or fourth quarter when you're down, and then throw Gino in and try to force him in a really tough spot to make a comeback win. Let Russ play. I would give him a full first quarter if he's really struggling. If he's throwing a pick, no touchdowns, not a very good completion percentage, I would just say bench him. Your finger's not doing it today. We'll wait a week. Throw Gino in there. Give him 3 full quarters to kind of get into the flow of the game and pull out a win.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that because it's just a finger sprain, not to mitigate that by any means. He's a quarterback. His hands are obviously very important, but I do think he'll be able to get over it. We did see Matthew Stafford, as you mentioned, get over a similar injury of sorts. So I think that he's going to be back, and I would assume he will lead them to a victory over the Steelers.
Yeah.
Now, in seasons past, after playing week 4, most people would say that we've reached the quarter mark of the season. Each team has played a quarter of its games, and it's a bit of a tradition in sports media to give quarter season awards. However, because the NFL added a 17th game to its schedule, we don't actually have a quarter marker. So Tony and I would like to present the first annual 2/9 awards. The format is really simple. Tony and I, off-screen, debated who we think are the best players in the league, and we picked the top 3 or so for each award. Tony, can I get a drum roll, please?
Oh, let's see. Do we have something loaded in for that?
You know what? I'll do it. The winner of MVP is Too Close to Call. So yeah, it's Too Close to Call. Tony, why don't you lead us off?
All right. So for this one, we went through, debated last night pretty heavily on this one, and it's tough, as it normally is after a quarter. There's usually quite a few players that can be put here. Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, and Matthew Stafford are all names that are being discussed right now. Of those, personally, I'm going to take Kyler. I think he wins over Dak, strictly because Kyler also has some rushing abilities that Dak hasn't put up. Their passing stats are both fantastic. Kyler, 76.1 completion percentage, 1,273 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but also 3 rushing touchdowns, which is huge. Dak, 75.2 completion percentage, 1,066 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Dak doesn't have any rushing stats, so that was really the only separator. Other than that, they're neck and neck. Dak has half of the interceptions, but Kyler is kind of leading in everything else other than touchdowns. But once you throw in rushing, then he's leading there too. Mahomes is, of course, he's a staple of the MVP race. He's posted impressive numbers. He leads the league in touchdowns by a healthy margin and doesn't look to be stopping anytime soon. The only reason we don't have a number 1 is because he did have a bad game against the Chargers. Now, at the end of the season, if his only bad game was against the Chargers and it was early and he brings it back and continues to kill it, he's absolutely still in this race. But because it's only been 4 games, if you're bad in one of them, that's 25% of your games you're not doing great in. So other than that, he's been lights out per usual. Unfortunately, we do have to look at every game. We can't even throw out the bad one, which means his stats are as follows: 72.3% completion percentage, 1,218 yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And last but not least, Stafford. He had his case hurt slightly from last night against the Seahawks, but he's no way out of this race. He played through his injury, and his stat line wasn't bad. It just wasn't MVP caliber. So far through 2021, he's looked like a McVay veteran. He kind of sponged the system perfectly already. He looks like he's very comfortable back there. And we're seeing what he can really do as an elite quarterback on a good team. Obviously, being in Detroit, he hasn't had a good team for any of his career until now. But so far, he's posted 68% completion percentage, 1,587 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Of course, we also must remember that, yes, Stafford's yards look really high compared to the other ones. That is including last night's game. So his numbers are slightly inflated, and we can compare that to the others after this week. The only reason that Stafford is really last right now is because his completion percentage is just so much lower.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the reason I wanted it to be Dak Prescott is Tony was championing Kyler Murray because, as he said, he gave Kyler Murray that rushing edge, the 109 rushing yards and the 3 touchdowns. My case for Dak was that he's performed better as a passer, and unfortunately for Dak, he actually has to compete with 2 better running backs than Kyler Murray does. Kyler Murray only really has to worry about James Conner. Whereas Dak has to worry about Zeke, of course, and then Tony Pollard, who is emerging as like a really good two-headed monster in Dallas. Both of them, Zeke has 340 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, and Tony Pollard has 250 rushing yards and a touchdown, which is obviously taking away from Dak. I know that the Cowboys would probably prefer Dak rushes at a minimum, but that is a reason as to why I would still want to give this award to Dak, because Dak does have the better rushers, and that almost is a detriment to him. I know it's an advantage in the long term, but it is a bit of a detriment in the short term in terms of an MVP award.
Yeah, absolutely. I know at the end of the season, they always look at the MVP almost always comes off of a team that is really, really good. So I think that as much as it hurts Dax statistically, it also helps his record because he has better rushers. It's more of a two-headed monster than you have to worry about with the Cardinals. So it pretty much comes down to, at the end of the season, Kyler's statistically probably going to have the better stats because he has to rush more, but Dak logically should have the better record because he has more help around him. Now, if Kyler has the better stats and the Cardinals end up with a better record, then it's going to be a pretty clear case for Kyler to win it. But I do think that if Dak ends up having the better record, I would still give it to Kyler at this pace of rushing, because at this pace, he's going to end with like 10, 11 rushing touchdowns at least, which is going to be a huge margin for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could legitimately be looking at a Lamar Jackson type season if he continues on this rushing pace.
Yeah, except he can actually throw.
Very true. I mean, he's legitimately he is not by any means by any stretch of the imagination a bad passer, which he really is. He really is just kind of like Dak was last year, where Dak was on this incredible pace. He was throwing for a lot of yards, he had a lot of touchdowns, and he was running a lot. And I just not that I think Kyler will be injured, but I do think that might be a concern for somebody who's so mobile, because that's kind of what we saw happen to Dak. As Dak took off and of course was injured, and that tanked the Cowboys season and ended his campaign. So that is something I think is kind of interesting to think about, is if one of these guys is to fall off, Mahomes, Dak, or Kyler, Stafford will include. I do think his case got significantly damaged last night. Who are you going to slot in? Who's fifth? Who's waiting in the wings?
Who am I going to slot in for that? I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers. I think that...
Thought you would.
Of course, he had that really, really poor game against the Saints week 1. If you're going to have a bad game as a quarterback, if you could pick any week, I'm betting most of them would pick week 1, because that's the week that nobody can predict. You can claim, hey, our team's getting used to it. We're getting back into the swing of things. We played a good team. We played in their case, a very hot outdoor venue, which never bodes well for them. So like, there's a lot of factors that you can kind of brush off and say, well, here's why I did poorly. If you can do poorly there, and then you can immediately come back and go right back into your MVP form, which since then he hasn't thrown a pick since then. He's thrown like 8 touchdowns. He's been on a really, really solid pace. If he can maintain that after Mahomes had his bad game, Prescott hasn't really had a bad game yet, but the season's young. Kyler hasn't had a bad game yet. Season young. Stafford, his bad game was kind of last night, even though it wasn't that terrible. So I think they're all in it. We just didn't want to, have 14 MVP candidates at the moment. So we kind of narrowed it down to our top 3 or 4. But I think Rodgers is right on the cusp, and he's looking to potentially jump Stafford this week after that bad game.
Yeah, I thought you might take Rodgers. If I had to guess who you were going to take, it would probably be your quarterback. But as of right now, there can only be one 2/9 MVP, and of course, he is the quarterback of the only undefeated team in the league. And congratulations to anyone who had the Cardinals being the last undefeated team in the league. You definitely earned that bet and that pay. So I would like to humbly present Kyler Murray with the first ever 2/9 MVP. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Kyler.
This is clearly the biggest award he has won thus far in his career. It wasn't being taken number 1 overall. It was the fact that I, Tom Zwiller, and Tony Nemeti have granted him this retrofitted pickleball trophy because he's the 2/9 MVP. Congratulations, Kyler
Absolutely.
Murray.
Pinnacle of your career right here.
Absolutely. It can only go downhill from here. Now, next, we have decided to move to the Offensive Player of the Year, or as I will be referring to it, because I clearly do not have enough time to say the full thing again, Opoi.
Nice.
The Opoi winner of the 2/9 award is
Drum
Cooper
roll.
Kupp.
Yes, sir. That was my guy. I wanted Cooper. We had a debate, a long debate about this last night.
This was definitely more in contention than I think the actual MVP was, which is kind of interesting. I think that the Oppo is kind of reserved for skill position players because MVP is a very narrative based award, and it just goes to the quarterback every year. Like I do think that it is fair to say that the quarterback is the most valuable player because he touches the ball every single snap and he is wide, he delivers it to people. So the offense does not work if you do not have a quarterback. But that being said, I think that there are some seasons in which, like last season, it would not have been crazy to give Derrick Henry the MVP. I don't think. Tony may fight me for saying that because, of course, it was won by his beloved Aaron Rodgers. But I think Oppo is kind of where the skill positions get to shine a little bit. So, Tony, why don't you present the case for Cooper Kupp because it was your guy?
All right, so we're going to stick with the Rams theme here. We already had Matthew Stafford in the MVP conversation. Now let's have a Rams player win it. We're going to go with Cooper Kupp because Kupp leads the league in receiving touchdowns. He has 5 already through 4 games. That's including last night. He didn't have one last night, so that could very well come to an end this week. But through 4 games, he was leading the league. He's second in receptions and third in yards. And he was doing all that with a new quarterback that is learning the system more and more every day, even though Stafford does look like he has he looks like he's a veteran, as we said. So, yes, he's a new quarterback, but he's also looked very good. Second, we have Deebo Samuel. Deebo second because even though he leads the league in yards, he does only have 3 touchdowns and he has a fumble. That was a huge talking point for us. Anybody that leads the league like he does in any category deserves to be in the conversation, but we decided to have him second because our third place guy, unlike Cooper and Deebo, Tyreek Hill doesn't lead in any category, but he's a great balance of both. He has 453 yards and he has 4 touchdowns. So he's pretty much right in the middle of those guys. And he has a really good balance between yards productivity and catching touchdowns. Finally, we have Derrick Henry. I don't want Derrick to be in this conversation, but Tom wanted him, so here he is. Yes, he leads the league in rushing yards, but he also has 30 more rushing attempts than the number 2 guy. So he's got a lot of yards, but he's not very efficient in how he gets those yards. So that's why we have Derrick Henry in here. I guess we do recognize he is leading the league in rushing yards, but we have to have him last.
Yeah, so Cooper Kupp he gets first place in this award because he's developed a very rapid chemistry with Matthew Stafford, and that is obviously like those two have linked up. And I said to Tony, hey, your Cooper Kupp take is looking really bad for Opoy. And then of course I believe that was about 5 seconds before he caught like a 30-yard pass and then another 30-yard pass and then threatened to score a touchdown. So as I said, you can tell I both took the over last night and was skeptical of Cooper Kupp having a lot of receiving yards because that is my luck while picking pretty much anything in the NFL. See my podcast, the touchdown rundown, for how terrible I am at picking the Chargers. It's a big joke now between Tony and I. I cannot predict a Chargers game to save my life.
Yeah, which scares me because as we will get into on that podcast later on today, we did pick the Chargers game.
Exactly. It's never good. We do go through every single game, so I highly recommend you check that out if you really like just a quick preview, a quick run through to get you ready for the NFL weekend. I actually wanted Deebo Samuel first just because he led the league in yards, and I know he only had 3 touchdowns, but my argument for him being first, I think got better because Cooper Kupp didn't score a touchdown, and I think Samuel has the potential to rip off a touchdown in the coming week. But it really did come down to that fumble. That fumble really was, it was a detriment to his resume, to be quite frank. And yeah, Tyreek Hill, he's really good. I think he's one of the people that has the potential to win Offensive Player of the Year pretty much every year. Mm-hmm. He is just a huge weapon and to that Chiefs offense, and he's one of the reasons that they are like genuinely a potential dynasty. And I do have to defend Derrick Henry. I want him here because he leads the league in rushing yards, and that team is literally nothing without him. He also has 4 rushing touchdowns, so that's not nothing either. Which is, I believe, tied for most among running backs. Of course, Sam Darnold leads the league in rushing touchdowns with 5, which is something that I did not expect coming into the season. But Henry is just the living soul of that Titans offense. Like, what? Can you imagine last week against the Jets if they don't have Derrick Henry and then they're also missing both of their wide receivers? Derrick Henry literally puts that Titans team on his back on the regular. In that Seattle Seahawks game, Derrick Henry said, all right, guys, hop on. We're getting on my back. And he carried them to an overtime victory. That's it. That's the only reason the Titans won that, because their defense isn't doing it.
Yes.
So
I see your point where Derrick Henry is the heart and soul of that team, especially last week against the Jets. And that argument would be awesome if the Titans won that game. But they lost that game. So Derrick Henry is not really that important. He lost to the Jets.
They did not lose it because of Derrick Henry, though.
Derrick Henry
is the only reason that game was competitive.
Yeah, but I think if you have Julio in there and Derrick Henry's out, you might get the same result, which kind of means that they're pretty much the same. Like I think you lose both times. You lose both ways, really. Like I don't think you win if you have one and not the other, because that team was just horrible last week. But I think if you have Julio or AJ Brown and you lose Derrick Henry, that team does just as well. Like it's a close game that you lose.
I don't think so, because without Derrick Henry, I don't think that game even goes to overtime. I think the Jets just cleanly win that one. Ryan Tannehill was terrible in third down. Ryan Tannehill was repeatedly sacked on third downs. I believe they were 4 for 13 on converting third downs. And the only reason that they were mildly in that game is because of Derrick Henry, because that offense would not exist without Derrick Henry in the first place.
I guess we'll never know. I still think that he does a lot better if he has a weapon like Julio, rather than relying on Derrick Henry every time.
If you gave Mike Vrabel the choice between Julio Jones, who has underperformed expectations this season, or Derrick Henry, I think he's taking Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think you should take Derrick Henry, but I'm just saying that last week against the Jets, Derrick Henry didn't really do all that much. Obviously, he lost to the Jets, didn't really pull victory out. I think you kind of get the same result from Julio. He does okay. He doesn't do absolutely phenomenal, because for some reason he hasn't done phenomenal, which going into the season, our take looks really bad right now. If Titans could go to the Super Bowl this year, they added Julio. They should be unstoppable. Oh, my take, right.
You wrote the article, not me.
I did write the article, but before that, we were both Titans could be in the Super Bowl.
It's not in print. My take.
Yeah, it's on recording. Go check out the touchdown rundown.
Somebody has to go actually back and listen to the podcast to find it, as opposed to I can send a link that says Tony Nemeti has them in the Super Bowl.
That is true. I did do that. That looks really bad right now.
It looks pretty terrible. I just think that Derrick Henry putting up 170 or so rushing yards is a big part of why that Jets game wasn't a total embarrassment. But you're right, and we can only give it to one person. And of course, the 2 nights Offensive Player of the Year. This is not the 2 nights MVP award. Mm-hmm. This is the Offensive Player of the Year award. They're hugely different. Look at this. It's completely different. It's not the same thing. It is not a recycled pickleball award. No. Cooper Kupp, this is it for you.
Congratulations.
Everything else is downhill. You guys may go win the Super Bowl this year, but your career started and ended with this award.
With this
that is not a pickleball award. It's not a St. Joseph Tennis 2019 Pickleball Championship Award.
Absolutely not. No, not at all. 100% no.
Now we move to Defensive Player of the Year, which I'm just going to call Depoy because I'm kind of lazy. And again, this is the Depoy Award. It is not the same as Opoy or MVP. I guess that would be but that does not flow off the tongue as well as Opoy or Depoy because it has a vowel. But this is the Depoy Award. Tony, who did you have winning Depoy?
I thought this one was actually the easiest one of the 3 so far. This was the easiest to pick. We had Trevon Diggs. He's played incredibly well this season. League leading 5 interceptions already through 4 games. That is an amazing kind of pace to keep. He's only allowed a completion percentage of 46% and a quarterback rating of 28. He also has 8 passes defended and 26 tackles this season. The only question is it kind of sustainable, I guess. He's obviously played exceptionally this season, but 5 interceptions over 4 games is an incredible rate. So as of right now, he's great. He's earned it, but we're skeptical as to whether he can get it at the end of the year. In second place, we have TJ Watt. He's obviously difficult to compare to Trevon Diggs because it's totally different position. Watt has blitzed 11 times. He's got 5 hurry-ups, 3 quarterback knockdowns, and more importantly, he has 5 sacks and 13 pressures. So unlike pretty much everyone else on this list, he's done it in actually 3 games. He has a whole game less. He's lost 25% of his time and done really, really well. So Watt has the better potential to sustain his pace. So as he, like last year, he was really just Aaron Donald away from being the defensive player of the year himself. Some would argue that he should have been defensive player of the year. I don't know how you argue against Aaron Donald, but I can see it. So there is that, and he could win it this year. And third, again, I didn't want him to be on this list, but Tom wanted him to be on this list. Myles Garrett. He has a league-leading 6 sacks, but 4.5 of those were acquired in one game. One game, he had 4.5 of those 6 sacks. So much like TJ Watt, Garrett has forced 3 hurry-ups, 6 quarterback knockdowns. He also has 16 knockdowns and 19 tackles. So Garrett got into the race with his high amount of sacks, but it was all pretty much in one game. So really, other than that one game, he only has 1.5 sacks over 3 games. So it's not really, I don't see him being able to pull out this win. I think he falls off really, really fast after this. But as of right now, we'll throw him in.
Yeah, no, I mean, you summed it up pretty well. My skepticism with Diggs and why I wanted to put somebody else on this list besides Watt and Garrett is, besides Watt and Diggs, why we've got Myles Garrett in is because the record for NFL interceptions is 14. It's held by Night Train Lane. And right now, Diggs would be on track for 21 interceptions. I know it's an expanded season, but I don't think he's going to beat the record by 7 more interceptions. He's not going to beat the record by 150%. So I'm just a little bit skeptical. Obviously, 2 of those interceptions came against Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers when Sam was under a lot of duress because the Panthers have legitimately one of the worst offensive lines in the National Football League. Yeah. So I don't think he's going to get 2 interceptions in a game again anytime soon. I kind of expect him to not continue this streak of interceptions because it's just, I think it's simply unsustainable. So that's why I think Watt made sense to go in second because he was in the conversation. The argument last year was that Watt had the higher stats, but the fact that that Donald was doing it in the position he was doing it in the line, that he was having such an impact as a line player versus a linebacker, where the linebacker is kind of probably going to have some higher stats because of where they're positioned. That was kind of the argument was, this is incredible for his position, but he has the better stats of the 2, so you have to kind of weigh those 2. The reason I want Myles Garrett in here is because I know he is one of the best to play his position. I think he's just simply a great rusher, and it may not have shown thus far through the season, but I think he's going to net more sacks as the season goes on. They have not played slouch offensive lines by any means. They have played the Chiefs obviously have one of the best offensive lines in football, which is a narrative in itself. They played the Vikings, which again do not have a slouch offensive line by any means. They have the Bears, of course, which is where he accumulated a lot of his sacks. But the point being, the Browns have not played terrible offensive lines. They've actually played fairly consistently good offensive lines, I think. So I think he's going to improve as the season comes along. And another reason I want him on here is because he's so crucial to that Browns defense being as good as it is, where it's a defense that can force absurd amounts of pressure, but still have a good secondary. So I think it was important to have him on there.
Yeah, fair enough. I see the argument. I just think he's a distant third, I guess is how I would put it.
I will meet you there. I think he's a distant third, but still deserves to, if we're going to do 3 people on this list, he deserves to be on this list.
Fair enough.
But we are doing a lot of projecting and a lot of saying, well, this is clearly unsustainable, but through 4 games, Diggs has sustained it. So Diggs, congratulations. You are now the 29th Defensive Player of the Year for the first time. Congratulations.
Yeah, first.
You are truly an inspiration to all of us.
Nobody can ever take that away from you. You were the first. There will be others, but you were the first.
You were the first and one of the most dominant.
Truly. I don't know if we're going to see a performance like this anytime soon. That's like so impressive. 5 picks through 4 games. That's amazing.
Now, we'll have to see when we come back and do, I suppose it would be the 4 Nights Awards or maybe the 6 Nights Awards. But at some point, we will come back and we will redo these and we'll see where Diggs is at. I think he has the potential to stay on there, but maybe not at the clip he's currently at.
Yeah.
Someone who does have the potential to stay at his current pace is Jamar Chase, our pick for Rookie of the Year. He is the runaway candidate here for Rookie of the Year. He's averaging 17.5 yards per reception. He has 4 touchdowns. That's a touchdown per game. And he has 297 yards on just 17 receptions, which is just kind of crazy to think about. If you scale that up to to the leading receiver, Devontae Adams, with 31 receptions, it would equal about 540 yards and 7 touchdowns through 4 games. He's just not getting targeted enough, but when he is getting targeted, he is crazy efficient. So he's just been really outstanding. I can't think of anybody else to compete with him. Tony, can you?
I really don't have anybody. I mean, we do have some linemen in the next one in the OROI that I think are very, very good and have been phenomenal this season. But you simply can't put a lineman against a skill position player who's been dominant unless that lineman has been like the greatest lineman of all time. It just won't happen. So off of that, I don't think there is anybody else. Like the quarterbacks have all been underwhelming. All of the other wide receivers haven't really put anything up. Kyle Pitts has been a massive disappointment so far. There's just been nobody other than Jamar Chase in the skill position category that's a rookie this year that's performed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mac Jones looked like he had the potential to be the potential rookie of the year. Yes, the potential to have the potential. That's how bad he was. Is he wasn't even like looking like he could win rookie of the year. I think that there is the possibility that we see Trey Lance when he takes what I'm assuming to be kind of full control of the offense for the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy G injured. I think that he might have the potential to step into rookie of the year, but he's going to be playing from behind. But of course, he's a quarterback, so he kind of has that bias going for him a little bit. So this list may change when we do the next set of these awards.
Yeah, absolutely. As of right now, we looked really hard. We looked at rankings of rookies right now. We looked at everything we could find, and we just simply could not find anything that would compete with Jamar Chase. Like, there's not even another guy in here that we could really put on the list and like make a case for. Jamar's just run away with it that heavily.
Yeah. By and large, Jamar Chase is I would say the main reason that the Bengals are 3-1 right now. Like if you look at Jamar Chase, what's different about Jamar Chase? What's different about the Cincinnati Bengals between this year and last year? One, it's that Burrow has both of his knees again, and two, it's that Jamar Chase is now on the receiving end of those passes, so he's just a weapon, and that. I'm not willing to admit I'm wrong yet because I think if Burrow gets injured again, I get to be right on this. But right now, the Bengals look really smart for not taking Penei Sewell, even though Penei Sewell has had a really outstanding performance this season, which we'll get to next. But as of right now, Jamar Chase, all of your touchdowns, all of your efficient receptions mean nothing compared to the Rookie of the Year award, the 2 nights Rookie of the Year award. Congratulations. You are an inspiration and an example to all of us. Amazing. Now, Tony, will you cue up the drum roll so I can award Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Oh, let's see if we can get a good drum roll going. Can you hear it?
Fingers.
It does hurt the fingers.
It is center Josh Myers. Wait a second. Sir. That's a Packers player? Oh,
it is a
Tony,
Packers player.
How did you get him by me? How did you get another Packers player on here? Oh, no. This is going to be a bad
because he's been so talented.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell us why he's so good?
All right. Well, hear me out. We were looking at these Offensive Rookie of the Years, and almost always it comes down to a skill position. But as we just said with Rookie of the Year, there really aren't any. So not a lot of the rookies that have done there's Jamar Chase, who's been the pinnacle. He's been excellent. And then a lot of like those good players that have been, not great, but they haven't been bad either. They're all defensive. And then you have kind of the bottom players that all happen to be offensive. So this award is even more difficult than the last one. But here's where we're going to show our offensive linemen some love. I'm just going to say it. There's no good skill positions candidates here. That being said, we're going to go with center Josh Myers. 2nd round pick for the Packers. He has a 96% pass block win rate. He has been an anchor in the run game, and he has not allowed a sack this season through 257 snap plays. And the main thing that separated him from me was he has not committed a single penalty so far this year. That cannot be said for our other 2 linemen. 2nd place, we have tackle Rashawn Slater. And there's good reason he should be here. He plays for the Chargers through 293 snaps, which is tied for 2nd most snaps played in the league, tied with Justin Herbert. He is not allowed a sack, and he has a pass block win rate of 87.8%, which is outstanding. It's not the 96% that Josh Myers has, but it's really good. And he's helped push the Chargers to become a much more efficient rushing team this season. He has committed 1 false start, but other than that, he has been very clean. And our last place pick, we just talked about him, tackle Penei Sewell. He's our final pick, and we think he has an argument to be considered because through 4 games, he does have a pass block win rate of 85.7%. So he's kind of neck and neck with Rashawn Slater. His only downfall has really been penalties. He's committed 1 hold and 2 false starts, but overall, he's been a very solid talent in the league, just like everybody projected he would be. So amazingly enough, I think this is probably going to be the only show you guys watch where we have all linemen for a position.
Yeah, absolutely. It's time to give the linemen some love. As someone who played D-line and O-line in high school, it's about time we give them some love. The only time you talk about an offensive lineman is when they mess up. When they are at their best, they're not talked about because they just cancel each other out. It's just they don't matter unless they mess up. In which case, when there's a penalty or when there's a sack, you're like, dang it. Who is that guy? I have no idea what his name is. Oh, he's one of the best at his position. Well, how did he screw up this time? He can't be the best at his position. But it's time to show them some love, and these rookies have definitely earned the love. Now, I do want to put a fourth candidate in of Jalen Waddle. I don't think he can win Rookie of the Year because he's so far behind Jamar Chase. But I don't think it's on Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle did pretty well in his first game with the Patriots where he had 61 receiving yards, but he also had a touchdown, and he was averaging 15.3 yards per reception. His problem has been since the first half against the Bills, which was the second game of the season for the Dolphins. He hasn't had his starting quarterback and has had to kind of rely on Jacoby Brissett, who is not up to the caliber, I would say, of Tua when it came to running that passing offense. I think that Tua did a better job of the Patriots than Brissett has done. He's been okay with the Bills, Colts, and Raiders. He did really well against the Raiders, but other than that, has not played up to scratch. So I think Waddle could get back in the contention for offensive Rookie of the Year, and given how we kind of, again, do have that bias towards the skill positions, I think that he could get back into this race, but he's too far. I think he's just too far behind to get Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think personally, if it were me giving out these awards, I would give it to one of these linemen just because these linemen have been phenomenal so far this year, and they just don't get the praise that they should. Linemen pretty much never win any major awards, even though they are. I think the O-line as a unit is more important than any other position on the field because, yeah, without the quarterback, you can't really do anything. But without the O-line, you really can't do anything. You can't even get the ball going in the quarterback's
Ask Joe
hands.
Burrow.
Yeah, ask Joe Burrow. Like, you won't have a career if you don't have a good line. So I think that we need to give the linemen some love, and this is the first time. So congratulations, Josh Myers, pinnacle of your career.
Yes, absolutely, Josh Myers. And on a more serious note than the sarcastic, you're an inspiration, he legitimately actually is a bit of an inspiration because one of the reasons that people were a little bit skeptical on the Packers being as good as they were last year is because that offensive line took some reconstruction. And Josh Myers simply has been, one of the cornerstones of that Packers offense being so successful. We talked about that 96% pass block, but he also has been really good as a rush blocker too. I don't think ESPN has those individual rush block stats, but the Packers as a whole have allowed Aaron Jones to be a really good rushing or a really good rusher.
Absolutely. And I think 3 out of 5 of the Packers O-linemen right now are rookies, which is amazing when you then think that playing the Steelers, they only allowed 1 sack. Like you have TJ
really
Watt,
good.
you have Cameron Hayward, you've got all these guys that are really, really talented. And against anybody else, they rack up, maybe a sack each, a sack and a half each. They had 1 sack as a team against all rookie linemen. These guys mesh really, really well together. And Josh Myers, as the center, he kind of has to be. That's another reason why we put Josh Myers at first, is because as the center, you kind of not only have to be blocking, you also have to be looking at the defense. You're kind of the quarterback's second eyes. Peyton Manning was talking about in that Manning broadcast that they do for the Thursday Night Football. The center is so important because the center is the quarterback's second eyes and does a lot of the things that the quarterback might miss. Like as the quarterback's reading secondary coverage, the center is kind of yelling out to his
You're looking
linemen.
At the defensive pressures, the linebackers adjusting the line to how you think you're going to either be blitzed or not blitzed.
Mm-hmm. You're kind of looking at that front seven, figuring out like who's the Mike or the middle linebacker or where are the other linebackers at? Are they going to be rushing up? Are they close at the line? Do you think they're going to drop back? Do you think they're going to blitz? You have to decipher all of these things and keep track of the play clock, make sure the ball snapped cleanly. You have to do all these things and then block perfectly. It's amazing what these centers and linemen in general do. They don't get the praise for it, but they should. So unfortunately, because of how few awards that linemen win, this might actually be the pinnacle of your career. I'm sorry to say that, but hey, it's a
Oh,
it's a high
wow.
pinnacle.
You're right. If they don't win a Super Bowl, this actually – okay, you know what? Less sarcasm. Congratulations, Josh Myers.
Congratulations,
This
Josh
actually
Myers.
may be the pinnacle of your career, and I apologize for that.
Mhm.
Now, we are going to move to some people who are not linemen, and this probably will not be the pinnacle of their career. Tony, can I get a drum roll for Defensive Rookie of the
Let's
Year?
get another drum roll going.
Asante Samuel.
Junior.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. So Tony and I came into our meeting last night thinking that we were going to be picking Micah Parsons because he just feels like the slam dunk. He's been really good for the Cowboys at linebacker, a unit that they desperately needed help in last year. And he has 2.5 sacks and has performed really well as a run stopper. But his weakness is that in passing defense, he allows a 75% completion percentage and has given up 101 yards, which is about a QBR of 99.7. So if you can attack Micah Parsons, you can actually do really well against this Cowboys defense, which is a huge problem if he's going to be your Defensive Rookie of the Year. So we decided instead, Asante Samuel Jr., he should be number one because he has shut down opposing quarterbacks. He has forced a completion percentage of under 50% at 48% and a QBR of 35. He's only allowed 87 yards. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tony. He has, is it 4 passes defended or 3 passes defended?
I think it's 4.
Yeah, 4. So he's doing really well. And I think if it stopped at running, if you just looked at running stats and you didn't have the advanced metrics to look at QBR against an individual player, I think we would have given it to Micah Parsons, but that would have been a mistake. So I'm glad that we are giving to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tony, do you want to present your little biased pick again?
Yeah, sure. I'll present my little bias pick that I see you have in your notes here, as I think I sort of like the case. Eric Stokes is going to be on this list as well. At first, I did pitch this because as a Packers fan, as a fan of any team, you kind of follow your team and your rookies more than anybody else is going to follow them. So as we've kind of watched these games and as Kevin King has been hurt, Stokes has kind of stepped in. And in that role, people have kind of been like, well, Stokes is a rookie. He's very young. How is he going to do? And he's actually done really, really well. He's only allowed a completion percentage of 50%, and he does have an interception last week against the Steelers. He's also allowed only 97 yards. So you'd think that, you're going into a game, a starting corner that is a somewhat veteran in the league and Kevin King is injured. You know that the team that has the injured corner is going to be putting in a rookie. Okay. So that rookie is probably going to be covering your number 2 receiver because of Jair Alexander, who is also now hurt. So Eric Stokes may very well be the number 1 corner that Packers have. That being said, if you're the quarterback, you're probably going to be targeting that rookie quite a lot, which has happened. That's how he has an interception. The Big Ben kind of made a decent pass into great coverage on Eric Stokes' part and picked it off to seal the game. But I do think that Stokes has the potential to move up this list, but I think that right now 3rd is a good spot for him, but he definitely deserves the recognition right now with Jair being hurt, and I think Kevin King might be coming back this week. We're going to see a lot more of Stokes playing, and we're going to really be able to see what he does. Asante really only is so much higher than Stokes is because Asante's played every game. He's played pretty much every snap. He's had a lot more time to do this, but I think efficiency-wise, if you're looking at both of them, they're pretty close if you scale up Stokes' playing time to Asante's.
Absolutely. Now, Patrick Surtain II, he was my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year coming into the season, but he's actually really underperformed. He's getting on this list because I still think he's good, but he's only allowed a completion percentage of 60%, which, not counting Micah Parsons, is the highest on the list. And he only has 1 interception and has allowed almost 200 yards against. That results in a QBR of about 78. So he still has a case to be made that he could improve. But right now, he is underperforming where he was expected to. And I do want to throw in somebody who, if they were not injured, because if Tony gets to have his guy on the list, I'm getting to have my guy on the list. If J.C. Horn were not injured, J.C. Horn would absolutely be in this race.
I agree.
He through 3 games, only allowed about 29% passes to be completed. That resulted in less than 20 yards, which is a quarterback rating of about 40. So he did really good. He just, he's injured and can't increase those stats, and therefore is kind of dropped off the list. And I think if Horn were healthy, I think Surtain would get bumped out of the race.
I agree with that. Actually, I would not have a problem. Unlike Tom, I support his picks.
Oh, I supported your pick. You see right there, it says on the script. I think I sort of like
that's
the
right
case.
there. Yeah.
Yep, it does. But congratulations to Asante Samuel Jr. This will not be the pinnacle of your career because you are not a lineman. But congratulations.
Yeah, and you are an outstanding player, so you will probably win some stuff down the road.
Everyone on here is outstanding, including the linemen, but the linemen do not get the recognition for being outstanding.
That is true.
All right, now let us do comeback player of the year. There's not a fun acronym I can do to kind of shorten it down, so I'm going to have to actually refer to it as comeback player of the year instead of like CPOY. Oh, I guess CPOY kind of works. But Tony, can I get a drum roll?
Let's get another drum roll going.
This race is a 2-pony race. Oh, okay. That's a long name. Who does this race is an absolutely a 2-pony race play for, Tony? Oh, I get it. It's because it's really hard to pick between Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, I'll present the case for Joe Burrow if you want to present the case for Dak.
I can go ahead and take Dak, absolutely. So Dak, I think, has the better case because he's also in the MVP race. 75.2% completion percentage with 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He's actually gotten more accurate after this injury, which is insane. His bad throw percentage went down from 15% to 11%, and his on-target percentage increased to 79% from 77%. Dak's also delivering the ball a little faster. His pocket time went down from 2.5 seconds to 2.2. That could be a result of being a little bit jumpy from the injury, trying to really making an effort to get that ball out quicker instead of looking for the deeper ball, which he used to do a little bit more. And his passing touchdown percent index went up from 94 to 121. He's gotten better after the ankle fracture, and he still has the potential to be the MVP. So I think he's a lock for this award, but Burrow's making a good case.
Yeah, Burrow absolutely has a great case. I know we talked about the Dak improvements. Burrow has actually done even better. And they have a very similar stat line. I know Burrow has 9 touchdowns to Dak's 10, and he has 4 interceptions to, I believe, Dak's 2 or 3. But he does have a 73% completion percentage, is only in his second year, mind you. His injury was in his rookie season. And his accuracy actually has taken a bigger jump than Dak Prescott's. His bad throw percentage went from 13 to down to 11. So he actually still has, he's about the same area as Dak in bad throw percentage. And his targeting accuracy went from 75 to 82%. So he had a bigger jump in his accuracy numbers. And his accuracy numbers are actually better than Dak's accuracy numbers. So I think that Burrow has the resume to earn comeback player of the year. And since he and Dak have the same record, I think that's kind of why this is a discussion. But as the season progresses and Dak continues to be an MVP caliber candidate, and I do expect the Bengals to fall off, I think that Dak will have the better stat line and is going to have more continued success. But I think Burrow has a case to be made for this award.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that Dak also has a much better supporting cast around him in the team as a whole. So when you're looking at, comeback player of the year, you're going to look at who affected their team the most. And obviously going from Andy Dalton to Dak Prescott, the Cowboys are going to have a much better record this year. I think that's going to play into it. And even if their stats are the same, the Cowboys are going to go deeper into the playoffs than the Bengals will if they make it at all at this point, which I do think they will. But the Cowboys are going to pull through a little bit deeper. And I think that, if anything, is going to be the separator, even though, you're kind of judging the player by the team. It's not 100% fair. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's going to come down to really be the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I do want to throw in the very, very distant, if you look way, 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 way back there, Christian McCaffrey. He had an injury last year. I believe he only played 3 games for the Panthers. He's already missed 1.5 games this season. So that's the reason that I think if he had played all 4 games, he's definitely more in this race. But because he's missed games already, he'll probably miss more games in the future. He's up in the air as to if he will even play this week. I think that really just does eliminate him from the race. But he is a distant third and could potentially catch up because if you've watched his highlights, he's a very fast guy.
He is.
But we can't project. We can only award what we've seen. So congratulations to Dak Prescott. The 2 Nights Award for Comeback Player of the Year is yours. Sorry you couldn't have the MVP award, but you know what? This one looks very similar to the MVP award.
Yeah, it does. And this could very well be the year that we see comeback player and MVP be the same guy. He's in both of those races.
There's no reason to think he can't win both. Now, let's go to our last award. We can give Tony's fingers a rest because he's been getting so many drum rolls. This is the last one, Tony. Can we get a good one?
Let's get a good one in there. One last one.
All right. A list of names.
Okay,
this is interesting. Sean McVay, Matt Nagy, and Kevin Stefanski. Wait a second. Oh, I get it. So those are all the Coach of the Year award winners in 2017, 2018, and 2020, respectively. All three of these coaches made the playoffs when their team won this award, but more importantly, it was actually their first year as head coach of the team. So that's why Tony and I have decided to select Brandon Staley for the award. His young Chargers are currently 3-1 and lead the AFC West, featuring really good wins over the Raiders and the Chiefs, and their only loss in a close game to the Cowboys. The defense has actually really improved with Brandon Staley, which go figure. He was the Rams defensive coordinator. I hope he'd improve it. And I still think, and Burrow has gotten even better looking and has made me more optimistic for his future as someone who has bought in all the Herbert stock I can buy, not Burrow, Herbert. Sorry, I'm getting him confused with Zach Taylor, who's later on in the list. I think the biggest marker of change for the Chargers and why Staley should win this award is because the Raiders scored 14 unanswered points in the second half on Monday Night Football. That's a game that the Chargers in the past would have folded up and let the Raiders just walk back into that game and steal it from them. But instead, the Chargers forced to stop and they were able to score. So I think it's Staley.
I agree. I like Staley a lot. His team has been phenomenal. Herbert has looked like. I think Herbert is another one of those guys that is just off the MVP list, and he's a real, like, if he has a really, really solid game, like a 4 or 5 touchdown, no pick game, maybe a 350, 400 yarder, which is possible. He could very well do that. He's very in that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we do move next, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the name of the only undefeated team left in the NFL for the 2 Knights Award. And of course, that is Cliff Kingsbury. Now, Kingsbury was met with much skepticism in his first season as a coach. He actually had a losing record in his collegiate career, and his only bragging point was the fact that he had once upon a time coached a young Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. Of course, he developed the air raid offense, and that was a really big selling point, is that he could make the Arizona team have a really good offense. So they drafted Kyler Murray. And, well, the rest has really been history. Kyler Murray, the quarterback, has done incredibly well and is developing really well. Now that he's in his third season with Arizona, he coaches a team that seems to be realizing his vision of the air raid to the NFL. If that holds up, we'll see. But if the Cardinals continue their winning ways, there is no reason Kingsbury will not be coach of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can, if this team actually ends up going 17-0, you can't argue against him. No matter how good Staley Chargers do, if the Chargers go 16-1, you still have to give it to Kingsbury. Because 17-0 is just so much more impressive.
And it's historically unprecedented.
Yeah, like he just has to win it if they keep this pace. I don't think they will. I think they lose at least 1 or 2. We're going to see kind of like the Rams, where they're going to have, some random fluky game that they should definitely win. Like, for example, the Cardinals beat the Rams. I don't think that happens 95 out of 100 times, but the Rams just didn't look great. The Cardinals stepped up. They did amazingly well. Kingsbury coached a great game, and that's going to be a huge talking point if they go 17-0, because it's not like, we went 17-0 against, terrible teams.
The AFC East.
Yeah, like we went 17-0, and we played good teams in our whole season. We have one of the tougher schedules in the league. So I think, especially if the Rams go on and win the Super Bowl like we're still predicting they do, Kingsbury takes this and runs with it.
Absolutely. Now, the third coach on our list, but not least, as you've probably seen on the ticker at the bottom of your screen, it's Bengals head coach Zach Taylor. This one is an interesting one. Taylor has turned around the Bengals. In his first season, they went 2-14, and then he improved to 4-11-1 with Joe Burrow, but of course Burrow was injured early on in the season, and he now has a chance to tie his win total in 5 games into the season. He currently has the Bengals at 3-1, and they play the Packers this weekend. So he is tied for control of the AFC North, has a shot to have his winningest season in his career yet, and has the Bengals looking like an offensive powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really impressive to see this Bengals team develop. 2 years ago, if you would have told us that Bengals would be starting 3-1 with a potential to beat the Packers. Like, I'm confident the Packers win this game, but if they lose this game,
You're not
I'm not
surprised.
terribly surprised. Like the Bengals are a very, very solid team. And I do think the last year, if Burrow doesn't get hurt, I think we see more of a 7-9, 8-8 type record out of this team than 4-11 or whatever it was,
4-11
4-12,
and 1.
4-11-1. Yeah, I think we would see a 7-9, maybe an 8-8 more performance. So
Yeah,
I mean, which would
absolutely.
be an amazing jump from 2-14.
You know what? I think 7-9 or 8-8 would be even more impressive because it just means that they didn't play a game because we're in the 17 era season. But I do get what you're saying.
Last year, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the joke in. But yeah, I do want to mention Sean McVay. How do you feel about Sean McVay? Like, let's say the Rams do look like they're a lock to win the Super Bowl come the end of the season. I do think that Sean McVay has a case, right? Even though he's won the award, he's well established in the league as an offensive innovator. Do you think he has a chance because he's starting with a new quarterback?
I think this is different though, because he's not starting with a new quarterback. Anybody that like watches the NFL, like
Okay.
you and I both,
New to you.
yeah, it's like it's new to you, but like there have been multiple times where, like, for example, Aaron Rodgers, when he does interviews with people and they'll say, we're in the era where you can make any throw, or Mahomes can make any throw. Who's a quarterback that doesn't get a lot of recognition? And every single time he will say Matthew Stafford. And one of the things he will say is, yeah, those no-look passes that Mahomes is doing, check out the past 10 years in Detroit. That guy's been doing them this entire time, but because he's on a terrible team, he never gets the recognition for it. And you look back, and he is doing it. He's doing no-look throws, cross-body throws, running to his left, throwing right, things that you should never do as a quarterback, and he's completing them. Back when Calvin Johnson was around, the guy was unstoppable. So I think that now we're seeing him on a legitimately good team, and now people are starting to go like, oh, wow, Matthew Stafford's actually a good quarterback. That's amazing, because if you look at his record with the Lions, he's probably got like 8 wins and a pack of gummy bears that he can pull from that franchise in his career. That's about it. So I think that as much as I might put McVay in there, I think that he already has such a team around him. You know, unlike Staley, who the Chargers were not that good a couple years ago, or Kingsbury, or Taylor would be a great example. Usually you're taking a bad team and you're making it into a playoff contender. Usually that's kind of the guy that wins it. Of course, you have the Super Bowl winning coach is always in the conversation, but it's usually the guy that took a terrible team and turned them into even just a playoff hopeful. Usually he'll win it because that's good coaching right there. It's not as good coaching if you take a team that's already fantastic and you make them into something, if you take a team like the Rams that you go from playoff to Super Bowl, it's way more impressive to take them from 3 wins to playoff.
No, absolutely. That's totally a fair point. I was just interested because of how good Stafford has looked to improve. Like, if you think about it with Jared Goff being on the Rams, I don't think the Rams win yesterday's game.
No.
I'm going to be honest. If you got to the point where McVay wanted to start John Wolford over your $200 million quarterback, what does that say about the quarterback? I think he has an outside chance because, like you said, the Super Bowl favorite coach probably is always in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just revitalizing Stafford's career, making Stafford more relevant in mainstream, and just seeing how good the Rams' offense is now, I think gives him a chance at least. But I do think you're right. I think Staley is the front runner, which is why we have awarded him the 2-9 Cody Award, Coach of the Year. May you have much more success than this pickleball trophy.
Congratulations. I hope you win the Super Bowl sometime soon with our boy Herbert.
Absolutely. Vindicate me. All right, that's our show for the week, guys. We'll see you next weekend. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I know it'll be football, and I know it'll be a great time, so we hope to see you then.
Later, guys.
Bye, everybody.